So that's one thing. Okay, here's the other detail that's weird. That makes me wonder, was it Jesus? Was it man? Was it alien? I like that one best. So that's what I hope it is. It's like, okay, we're ending the contract. We're clearing your energy. They're really pissed off you're here, but this ends today. And I'm like, okay. I didn't realize I was going to be telling this story today. I might sound really kooky, but I hope that my clarity comes through. All right, so let us begin. Dear Diary, January 30th, 2001. So this was 20 years ago that I wrote this entry right here. A little more than 20 years ago. That's crazy. Today was a normal day in school. I finished my report. It's due tomorrow. He gave us forever to get it done, but I waited till the last few days to start again. I'm doing it on the planets. Jaw feels younger me. Yeah, I suppose that's like an anxiety trait that I've begun to get over in my adulthood, but yeah, that sort of anxiety about starting, so procrastinating until the end. I'm sure some of you viewers, perhaps some people in university, can relate to such a thing. Today was new beginnings. We practiced at 5 and started at 7. We sang Feed My Sheep. I love that song. It made some people cry. So for those of you who are a little bit confused right now, New Beginnings is actually if you are aware of the LDS Church, the Church of Latter-day Saints, aka the Mormon Church, that was actually what I grew up in. I don't consider myself Mormon anymore. I don't believe in the word in that way at this point in time. But at this point in time, I was raised in a very Mormon household. So New Beginnings is this, there's this youth group thing where you could kind of think of it like scouts, kind of, where the men of the church do like scouts and their thing, but there's also like the female version, which they don't call Girl Scouts, but it's like young women's is what they call it, and I guess that they call it young men's for the young men. And like the young women group, it's basically like a sort of a scouts, only much lamer, where you do this workbook and you do the tasks and your teacher signs off and you get little, I don't know, badge things. Badges, it's more like a pendant. Like you get these pendants, necklace pendants, when you complete a section, and there's 3 different parts if you're a girl. The first part is like, I don't know, 12 to 14 year olds, I want to say, or maybe it's younger than that. It's been so long, I don't remember the exact age groups, but basically the youngest ones are the beehives, the middle ones are the Maya maids, and then the oldest ones, so like the ones that are like 17, 18, are laurels. And so that's the system that they put you through in the Mormon Church. And New Beginnings is basically where they take the young men and the young women, and it's like an event where you like click them both together, sing about church stuff. There's probably food or something. It's been so long since I've been to New Beginnings that I honestly don't even remember all that it entails. But I guarantee it's like some churchy speakers, some singing, possibly some food, and just meeting with your groups. So that's what that is. That's what I was doing 20 years ago. Mom chose Faith to talk about on me. So, okay, maybe what they did in New Beginnings, it sounds like they made the parents give a little talk or something about the quality, a Christ-like quality of their child or something is what I'm gathering from that. I really don't remember that either, but they're definitely all about giving their members homework in the Mormon Church, whether that be a talk that you got to give, or you got to learn your blessings, or whatever. There's a lot of homework to be had in the Mormon Church. New Beginnings is a good example of that as well. The whole young women, young men scout program thing. She said, "I always have faith. And when she's sad, I tell her it's okay." Oh, you know, that is one of my special talents, though, is I do have a way of encouraging people not to give up. One thing that I do think that I've heard of, like I said, I'm not a religious individual anymore, but there is this idea of like spiritual gifts. And one of the gifts that I've heard of is the gift of exhortation. And I think, I don't know if I really view it in those terms, but I think if I did have a skill, I think the skill of exhortation, aka encouragement, inspiration, I do think that's one of my skills, or it's one that I am trying to cultivate more, at least. That I do think I have a natural knack with optimism and resilience and hanging in there when things are dark. So I think that's what she means by that. She told the story about when I was 4 and I got lost in the desert. I spelled desert right too. 1S. She told the story of when I got lost in the desert, and when she found me, she asked me if I was scared. And I replied, "No, Jesus walked with me." I can't even remember saying that. Anyway, so it's really funny that I bring up this situation. So, the scenario that I'm talking about here is there was this rather dramatic incident in my childhood where I guess I was 4 years old. We used to live in like New Mexico, and there was like desert all around, and the area that we lived in, the little like cul-de-sac suburb thing, was right on the edge of like some deserty area. So one day, I guess that we were babysitting one of our neighbor's dogs, and so my mom just decided she was gonna take me and my younger sister, just one of my younger sisters. The other one wasn't born yet, but the middle sister was there, and the dog. So we were just out in the desert. My mom used to do this thing where she'd like collect sagebrush, and they'd like pay you if you did that. So she just had this area that she did that, where there was just all this brush, all this sage. So that's where we were, and I was just kind of hanging out, and the dog was running around doing its thing. And I do distinctly remember this, actually. The thing about this memory is that I distinctly remember parts of it, but other parts I do not, which has created a very interesting mystery in my life. But so I remembered that the dog was running around, and so and it had suddenly disappeared. And so I thought to myself, I was like, oh, I should go after the dog, and I could see its footprints in the sand. So that's what I did, is I just followed this footprints in the sand. And my mom had her back turned at the moment because my sister was younger than me, and she was being like fussy, and so she was like getting her all settled in the stroller, the little walker situation. So while my mom was doing that, she wasn't paying attention to me, and by the time she turned around, I had disappeared into the brush. So by the time she had done settling my sister, I had already rushed off into the brush. And once again, I do have a memory of this. I remember very specifically seeing the dog prints in the sand, in the dirt, and I remember walking and following them, and I followed it up this hill. And my mom, I did get her kind of corroboration on events as well, and she was able to kind of verify these things. Interesting detail I'll get to in a moment. I remember there was like this hill, so I was kind of lost and confused. So I thought to myself that if I got to the top of the hill, I could maybe see where my mom was. Pretty smart for a 4-year-old, I think. So I specifically remember walking up to like the top of like this dune, this like sand dune. And I remember at the time I was a religious child. So at the time, I remember what I did was I was crying, and I got down on my knees, and I just prayed to God, because they always tell you, if you're in danger, just pray to God and he'll come save you. So that was kind of the mentality I was going on as a 4-year-old. And I remember this so distinctly, of like getting down on my knees and just crying and having all this just tears and snot, and all this sand is just like getting all stuck on my face, and I remember just praying that I would find my way home. Okay, so here's where the memory splits. Because I used to think about this incident a lot. Like when I was in elementary school, I used to think about this incident all the time, because there's this weird split in the memory, and I used to think about that all the time. And I really wonder what that means. I really do. Because in my memory, it's like I'm there praying, and it's like somebody was there all of a sudden. Like that's what I remember, is all of a sudden somebody was there, but I don't remember who it was. And at this point the memory splits. So the part that I used to think about when I was a kid a lot is this sudden jump. It's like my memory suddenly jumps where I'm like walking in a different part of the desert, where it's like there's houses. I'm like walking along this dirt road, and I'm walking and I'm crying, and I'm seeing all of these, like kind of distance houses. It's in a rural area, but I'm passing all these houses, and I'm crying, and I'm just walking and I'm crying, and these cars are like driving on the dirt road, and they're just driving right past me, which seems weird. Like that's the first red flag, is it's like, okay, first of all, why would I not just go to one of the houses? I mean, maybe a 4-year-old wouldn't think of that, but why would a bunch of cars drive by and just leave a 4-year-old crying in the desert? That seems weird. So that's what, there's a few different things that make me think this memory's off. So in this memory, I remember, the way that I remember it happening in this split is, I forgot the first part. Okay. So how it happened is I remembered that I was walking, and before I was walking down the roads, I found this creepy, it was like this chain link fence with like barbed wire at the top. So this giant fence with barbed wire, and I remember this big old truck just drives right past me into this creepy, I don't know what it is, facility thing that looks very daunting to 4-year-old version of me. And I can hear there's these angry dogs. Okay. Here's how it was. So when the memory splits, I remembered that I continued following the footprints, and it led me to this creepy chain link fence with a barbed wire, angry sounding dogs, and angry sounding men that I can hear. And I am afraid, and this truck drives by me without like paying me any mind, and so I leave, because I'm like, oh, this is not the dog I was looking for, basically. And then that's when I'm walking down. So then I'm walking down this road, dirt road, cars are driving past me, and until one car does stop. And inside this car, this is how I know this memory is not real, because when I corroborated with my mom afterwards, this person was not the person that found me. But in my memory, I remembered it was a lady that found me. It was not a lady that found me. It was actually a boy, like a 16-year-old boy. But in my memory, there might have been a boy there, but the main character I remember was like this larger woman. She had really, I remember she had really big curly red hair, and there was a giant like Saint Bernard type dog that she had in the back of her truck thing. And that's specifically what I remember. Very dog themed, this memory, which I think is interesting. So that's what I remembered. And then I remembered she took me to her home and I watched cartoons and she gave me candy and they called my parents. And then when my mom came in, I ran to her and I gave her a big old hug and I was so happy to see her. And that was that. And that's what I remember happened. That's not what happened. That is not what happened, my friends. What actually happened is still a memory. It is still a memory. It's still a mystery. It's a mystery memory. Because here's the thing. I told you that at that moment there's a weird split in my memory where I kind of remember a person being there, but then suddenly it's like it picks up in a whole different thing, you know? And then that scenario I just described to you happened. Okay, I did some sleuth work a few years back to try and figure out more details. And so here's kind of what I gathered. My mom actually wrote in her journal about the incident, so I had her give me her rendition. So basically, here's what actually happened, because that memory ain't real. So what actually happened, we don't know what actually happened, but weird thing, my mom said that she ended up going up the hill. She ended up doing what I did. She followed my footprints. And she said that she went up to the top of a hill. And she said at the top of the hill, which is what I remember happening, my footprints disappeared. Weird, right? I mean, I can think of maybe reasons why that would maybe happen, you know, logical reasons, like maybe I went down the other side of the hill and then the wind was in such a way that it brushed my footprints away in that few minutes that my mom and I were separated. But or several minutes, I guess. So it's possible, but it is a very odd detail that I do remember going up to the top of the hill. I do remember praying, and then I don't really remember what happened after that, except for that weird memory that I'm pretty sure is not a real memory. I used to think about that memory all the time. So young me was obsessed with whatever happened to me that day. I'm still not sure. But anyways, so that's one thing. Okay, here's the other detail that's weird, that makes me wonder. Was it Jesus? Was it man? Was it alien? I like that one best, so that's what I hope it is. So there's a split, and it was actually a 16-year-old boy that found me miles away from where I disappeared, which is the weird thing, because I mean, even though it was a few hours, it seems strange that a 4-year-old would be able to get several miles from where she started in the middle of a desert. Seems a little weird. Here's the other weird thing about where they found me. They supposedly, at least, because one of my other thoughts about what could have happened is, what if that 16-year-old boy actually like took me and did bad things to me, and that's just what he said happened. So if we're getting down and real, that's another. If it's not God, if it's not aliens, I worry about that being the real truth, but I hope not. I hope it's aliens, because the thing is they found me several miles from where I started in the middle of this field. The sun was about to go down. They were about to send the helicopters out, but they found me in time. So in the middle of this field, and a field where they used to do hot air balloon shows. That was so fun. In New Mexico, they would always do the hot air balloons, and we actually rode in one time. So I'd like to do that again one day if I could. So he found me. Okay, here's what his story was. So supposedly, this 16-year-old guy was just out in the boonies. He said that he was actually looking for firewood, so he could do some like camping stuff, you know. And he said that it was weird that he went to the area that he did. He said that he was looking for firewood, but he felt pulled to go to the he felt pulled by something to go to the field, the balloon field. And he recounted to my mother, this was in her journal, that was very strange, you know, that there's no firewood there, so he doesn't know why he felt drawn to do that. But supposedly, once he got there to the big open field, he saw in the distance, he saw me out in the distance, and he was like, at first he thought it was a mirage or something, but then he was like, is that a little girl? Sure enough, it was me. So he went and picked me up, and here's the other weird detail, and my mom says this too, is like, for just being lost in the desert, I was weirdly placid. Like, I was just like, okay, you know, like this guy arrived, and he was, you know, he just came and scooped me up and took me back to his place, and they got the police and all of that. That's the story anyway. And supposedly they took me to the doctors, and the doctors said that everything was fine. Didn't look like there was any shenanigans going on. I was a bit dehydrated, which is to be expected, and I drank a ton of water. That's the other thing, is my mom told me that I drank so much water when I got back. Fair enough. Okay, so from my mother's journal entry, here's the other part where it starts to get weird. So if you remember what I just said earlier, that I remember being at this lady's house, having cartoons and candy, and then when my mom came to her house, I jumped up and I ran and I gave her a big hug, and I was so excited. That's not what happened. According to my mother, when she went to pick me up from wherever I was, I guess at that point they took me to the station. So I wasn't even at the person's house when my mom picked me up. I was at the station. So that's how we can extra know that first memory that I thought was real is definitely not real. So we're at the station, and my mom says that I was weirdly catatonic. Like that's how she described me, as non-responsive. That she approached me and was crying, and she gave me a big old hug, and she said that I didn't even react. She said that I didn't hug her back. I didn't seem upset. I just seemed very numb, like neutral, you know? And that's so weird, because in my memory, I remember it being a joyous meeting. But when my mom recounted her version of the story based on what she wrote in her journal, she said, and I quote, I saw Samantha and I just ran up to her and I gave her a big old hug and I was crying and she didn't even hug me back. She didn't even respond at all, but I didn't care because I was just so happy to see her. That was what my mom said. And that's very different than what I remember. So all of these things just make me feel like, what the heck happened to me? You know, because I kept telling my mom, I'm like, well, didn't you ask me what happened? And she's like, yeah, I tried to ask you so many times what happened, but you were really zip-lipped about it. You wouldn't tell me, she said. And that was really unlike you. Because it's true. I can be quite a bit of a chatterbox. So whatever happened to me, I was very hush-hush about it, and it made me respond in a very closed off way. And anyway, yeah, I'm not really sure what happened to me. My mom is convinced that Jesus came and picked me up and saved me and brought me to that field and then gave the boy an inspiration to go find me. And who knows, maybe that is the truth. I mean, I guess I don't really believe in God in that specific way, but I mean, I guess I don't know. I can't fully count it out because my mom claimed, according to this, that I told her that I was not afraid because Jesus walked with me. So I don't remember saying that, and I think that that's a very odd thing for a child to say. But I personally was like, Jesus, no way, man, aliens. That's what that was. I was totally abducted and they dropped me off in that field. I really want that to be the answer anyways. I wanted it to be the answer so badly that I had some friends who were going to this, so I started trying to recover those memories. I thought to myself, maybe I could put myself through some hypnosis sessions because I didn't really have money to go to a professional. And so I just thought to myself, maybe I can just do it by myself. Maybe I can just, if I just keep meditating and I keep trying to do these sorts of memory retrievals, maybe I'll get something, you know? So one of my very dear friends had suggested to me that I go to this certain energy healer medium lady with that he had very good experiences with. He told me about how she did this thing where she lays you down and then she grabs your ankles and she's able to get psychic reading downloads by grabbing your ankles. I guess she described it to him as completing the circuit, you know, where she's connects into your energy field or something and gets these psychic messages, and she does this energy magnetic healing stuff. And I don't know, I'm generally a bit skeptical, but I'm also a very experimental person and willing to try anything at least once. Well, okay, not everything, but I'm willing to try all sorts of experimental things just for the sake of curiosity and experimentation and just seeing what happens. You never know. So I decided I was going to go. And here's the weird thing about that scenario. I didn't realize I was going to be telling this story today. I might sound really kooky, but I hope that my clarity comes through. And I hope that my skepticism comes through, and I hope that the truth of my experience and what I'm saying is coming through. So I decided that I was going to try this magnet healer lady and maybe see if she could figure out what happened to me. Okay, so weird thing is I woke up that day and my friend was going to come with me and we were making a whole day of it and it was going to be a thing. Weird thing about that day is I woke up with this splitting headache, and I never get headaches. I rarely get a headache, okay? That's not one of my personal maladies. But I woke up with the most uncharacteristic splitting headache. And I was like, that's really weird, you know? And so I'm driving, and as I was driving to this lady's office, I felt like I was in this weird daze. Because I missed I missed the entrance to this place twice. I drove past it. It's I knew it was coming up, and my friend kept being okay, it's right up here. But it's some part of me was just it was so weird, was just dazed. And it's even though I was saying, turn here, it's I didn't. And I was just whoa, that's weird. And then I went back around and I did it again. So very odd. And the whole time my headache is just hurting my head, and I'm just like, what is going on? So I go to this lady, and anyways, apparently what happened with me did not happen to my friend or his sister, who had also gone to this healer. So my experience was not usual, apparently, because what happened is like she laid me down, and she has this little magnet roller thing, and she was trying to roll it up my back, but it kept getting like stuck, and it was like she kept having to like fight it. And she was like, that's really weird. This doesn't normally happen. Something is blocked in you. And it was weird. And my friend was able to corroborate that's like, oh yeah, like it was weird. That didn't happen to me any of the times I've been to her or my sister. And he was able to verify that she was like on my back, really pushing this magnet, just trying to get it to go over my spine. And so she's like, well, let me see what's going on here. So she does the ankle thing. Fun story, right? Or I think that this is a really funny experience. So she grabs my ankles, and she gets this download, and she comes up to me very gently, and she says, I'm trying to connect to your spirit right now, but I can't. And I'm like, what? Why? And she's like, I don't want you to be afraid, but I can't connect to your spirit right now because somebody else is there. And I'm like, what does that mean? And I'm not gonna, I must admit, throughout this whole experience, I was having this dazed, I felt like I was high on something because I was just in this weirdest mental space where everything was kind of like foggy and weird, and I had something was going on. Something was going on there. But basically what she told me is that supposedly I had 3 individuals attached to me. Apparently they were like demons or something. She's not the first spiritual teacher to tell me that I've got a demon attached to me. So maybe I just got demons. The other person thought I had a demon. Oh, butt demon. Sorry. The other person thought I had a butt demon. But she said that I had 3 spirits attached to me because I engaged in some contract. But she claimed that it was one male with 3 different female insubordinates, essentially. And she said that supposedly I had made a contract with them at some younger time when I wasn't aware, telling these people that they could have a human experience in my body. Weird. I don't remember doing that. And supposedly I had already completed my contract with them, but that what she said is that they were abusing the contract. She told me that they were abusing the contract and that they were basically exploiting a loophole and the fact that I was not aware of their existence. That's what she claimed. And I know that she said that they were really upset that I was there, and they were cussing me out the whole time. I guess they were saying all kinds of nasty things about me. And she was like, can you hear them? And I was like, no. And she's like, good. So I don't know, that does kind of freak me out. But anyways, so she's having this whole experience, and she's like, okay, we're ending the contract, we're clearing your energy, they're really pissed off you're here, but this ends today. And I'm like, okay. So we go through this whole exorcism, essentially, and I'm not gonna lie, I was having body sensations. I was having body sensations and mental sensations. Something was happening. And like I said, I went into this thing open, but a little bit skeptical. But man, I was having some sort of experience with this. And anyways, towards the end, she kind of I was asking her questions, she was able to connect to my spirit, even though the other people were still there. She was able to get a connection. And I asked her, I was like, can you tell me what happened? And I told her about this experience where I got lost in the desert as a 4-year-old child. And I asked her, can you tell me what happened? Can you tell me? So according to her, those things that were attached to me were involved with me being lost in the desert, because according to her, what happened, according to her, is I got abducted by some nasty people who did a satanic ritual on me and attempted to make me a sacrifice to the devil. That's what she said, is apparently when I got lost, they were trying to sacrifice me to Satan. But she didn't go into details, but I fought it, you know? And the thing is young me was such a believer in that kind of stuff that I imagine in that scenario, I'm sure I was very unruly and probably just would have, maybe God would help a young child in that scenario. I don't know. But then what about all the other kids that don't get help? Like, that seems messed up. So anyways, I don't know if I believe that that's what happened to me, but super interesting input, right? So anyways, according to her, according to one energy healer, what happened to me that day is I got abducted by some Satanists who tried to sacrifice me to the devil, but that didn't work out. And I mean, if that's true, then I mean, that would be a good reason why maybe a false memory would cover that up, you know? I don't know. So that's what she said. But, and I felt much better, and my headache did go away after I left. So I don't know, guys. Like I said, be a skeptic. I mean, I'm not sure what happened that day. All I know is something not quite explainable happened to me. Anyways, oh, I will tell you about one other thing. So after this, and she told me that I was like abducted by Satanists, and still inside I'm like, no way, that's not what happened. You know, I'm like, no, I know it was aliens. I know it was aliens. So I was like, well, maybe what I'll try to do. Oh my gosh, you guys are gonna think I'm so weird after this. But the truth is like I've hidden all this weird stuff, and like I said, I'm a skeptical person, but I have had genuine run-ins with the unexplainable, the unknown, the otherworldly. And as a result, in order to be authentic to myself, I just have to admit that I do think the world is a magical place. Weird magical things have happened to me, so I must admit that, and it's okay. If everybody thinks I'm weird or silly, then at this point, I just have to be authentic and I have to be real and say, this is my truth. This is my experience. This is what has happened to me. So that night I went home and I decided I was going to do a little witchy spiritual ritual to try and I basically, you know, just this idea of creating a space where I could receive the answer. So that night I did a little ritual, and I have this balcony over here, and I thought it was aliens. So I said to myself, I opened the balcony doors before I went to bed. It was warm, it was summer, and sometimes I like to sleep with them open anyway. And I was like, I invite whoever I met that day, I invite you to speak with me. So that's what I did. And I was just like, well, okay, we'll see if that does anything. I kind of didn't think it would, to be honest, but I was willing to try because that's who I am. I'm a person that's willing to try. So I just tried, no expectations. And I'll tell you what, friends, I got an unexpected answer. The next morning, I woke up with sleep paralysis, and it has been a long time since I've had sleep paralysis. I've had bouts of it throughout my life, but I haven't had it for years and years. So I had sleep paralysis that morning that I woke up, and I remembered that I woke up and I was in sleep paralysis, and I could hear this like weird voices rather. And I remember waking up, and my first thought was like, as I was kind of becoming aware, I was like, oh, it worked! It worked. My little ritual worked. Oh my gosh, you know, so I was really excited. But the thing is like the voice sounded creepy. You know, in movies, the way that they always make like demons sound, how it's like a whole bunch of voices all layered on top of each other, and they're speaking like in this weird otherworldly tongue, and it's all echoey. That's exactly what it sounded like. I could hear just this echoey, creepy voices all around me in this weird tongue that I didn't recognize. Yeah, I was a little unsettled, but I was still like, well, if it's aliens, then maybe they just sound scary and I just can't understand them. So what I did is I kept trying to communicate with this voice psychically and just be like, oh, are you the one that was there that day? And it just kept making this weird like creepy voice, right? And I couldn't understand what it was saying, and so I said that to it. I was like, I can't understand you. I don't know what you're trying to say to me. Will you speak in my language? And it just kept doing that voice, and the longer that I sat with the voice, the more creeped out I started to get. So at one point, so about a minute or two of that, and I'm just like, okay, this is going nowhere. You refuse to speak in my language, and you're starting to creep me out, dude, so be gone. And I just said, be gone with you. And I did this thing from back when I was experimenting with lucid dreaming and astral projection and stuff. I have this release mechanism where I envision a light shining out of me, like either my head or my heart, and I just envision this light shining, and that's my release mechanism in case stuff gets too real. So that's what I did in that moment. I was like, okay, you're creeping me out, you're not answering me, please leave. And I just envisioned the light, and I released myself, and I woke up, and I was like, wonder what that was about. So anyways, maybe it was demons. It's basically what I gathered from that. So anyways, look at that weird supernatural thing that happened in my life. You guys might think I'm a little kooky, and I don't know if you'll fully believe that, but I swear to God, heart of hearts, that story is 100% the truth. It really is. That is an incident in my life, and a reason why I just think this life is magic. Anyway, let's finish this because it's almost done. I hope that I find the real answer soon. I hope one day I remember what happened, because when I tried to do my memory recall, all I got was memories I didn't want back. So let this be a warning to anybody who's thinking of doing their own memory retrieval hypnosis. Sometimes you don't remember things for a good reason, and I got some other memories that I didn't really want back, but it's probably a good thing for me to know. I'm not going to get into that right now, though. Anyway, on to a new subject. I'm over halfway finished with Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Ooh, that must have been, we were on Harry Potter book 4 at that point in time. That is such a good book. Goblet of Fire was my favorite one for the longest time, just because I loved that whole trial section. I mean, of the Harry Potter books, that's probably one of the only ones that I've read more than once. That one I read more than once. Deathly Hallows I read more than once. And of course, the first one I read more than once as well. But Goblet of Fire is still maybe my favorite, just because I think it's the most fun of all of the books, personally. That is such a good book series. Maybe I'll get my kids to read it one day. Like, that's gonna happen. Sorry, younger me. I know at this point in time we were still laboring under religious delusions of what life is and what my future would be, but I don't know if we're having kids, is basically what I'm gonna say about that. Love this diary. See ya. All right. So that was entry number 1. That was entry number 1 of my diary. And episode number 2 of this series. Well, if I didn't weird you out too much with all my weird kooky stories, maybe I'll see you next time. Or if I weirded you out, then thanks at least for your time this time. Alright guys, until next time, keep it cool and love your diaries. Do I look okay? Sound okay? Does this look better? I'm not sure.